IDA meeting, take one.
All right, we're ready.
Okay, good morning everyone and welcome to the Oswego County Industrial Development Agency meeting of June 28th, 2023. And before we begin, I'd like to ask Kevin LaMontagne, our CFO, to introduce the staff or guests that might be present today. And also have Tim Stahl, our Secretary Treasurer Pro Tem, do a roll call of board members to ensure that we have a quorum. So Kevin.
Great, Gary. So today for staff, we have Austin Wheelock, the Chief Executive Officer of the agency, and myself, Kevin LaMontagne, the Chief Financial Officer of the agency. In addition, we have our General Counsel, Kevin Caracoli.
And no guests.
And no guests today, at the moment at least. Yeah.
So Tim, can you do a quick roll call, please?
Sure thing. Chairman Zolt.
Present.
Vice Chair Canale.
Present.
Let's see who we got here. Mark Greco.
Present.
Barry Trimble.
Present.
Lynn Schick is absent excused. Tricia Peter Park is absent excused. And Tim Stahl. Present.
Okay, good. So that ensures we have a quorum. Thank you very much. And so we might as well begin the meeting. First item on the agenda is a minutes of the IDA meeting of May 31st, 2023. And everybody got it on the portal? Okay, did everybody get a chance to review them? Can I get a motion and a second on the minutes, please?
I'll move this.
Motion by Mark Greco, seconded by
I'll move it. I'll second.
Seconded by Tim Stahl. Any additions, errors, or I'm sorry.
That's okay, either way.
I'm sorry, Nick. Any additions, errors, or corrections on the minutes? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Carried. And did everybody get the government's committee meeting minutes? It was sent out June 19th. Okay, now, is this something that we're gonna go over and discuss right now?
We can go over that and discuss it in its portion of the meeting unless we want to do it right now. I mean, there's no real need to do it right away.
I'll make the motion to accept the minutes.
Sign number 4. Okay, on the minutes, can I get a motion in a second?
I made the motion, Tim made the second.
Okay, Tim made the second, we'll be discussing it later on the agenda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those
Aye.
opposed? Carried. Okay, the notice of the meeting was in the Palladium Times on June 14th. In the treasurer's report, again, that was on the portal. I hope everybody had a chance to take a look at it. Can I get a motion and a second on the treasurer's report, please?
I'll move it.
Motion by Barry Trimble, seconded by
I'll second.
Mark Greco. Any questions or,
Comments?
yeah, well, any questions or comments? Yeah.
Apologize for that. I can make a few comments on the financials, just a quick overview. Not too much to report. We're at a time of year where we don't see a lot of closings, so, and I'm sorry, let me start with the balance sheet. That's the first thing you have in your booklet. A couple of key things on the balance sheet just to know or to watch for. Under fixed assets on the asset side on the first page of the balance sheet, about a third of the way down, you see that Richland Peck Road parcel. As of today, sitting here in this meeting, that land has sold, but as of May 31st, it had not. So we'll see that, we'll have that transaction on our books in June, just that that's coming. So we have the cash, as of today, June 28th, we have the cash in-house, and we'll be booking a gain based on that sale. No other comments on the balance sheet. On the one more thing on the loan side. On page 2 of the balance sheet under USDA IRP, we see D&D logging and lumber written down to 0, loan 4717, which is the settlement we had reached, and we received basically the settlement amount. So that is closed, and the new owners, McIntosh, are on their way. On the P&L, I was starting to say before, this time of year, kind of historically and understandably, isn't heavy for straight lease transaction closings, so the income coming in the IDA is a little lower. That being said, we're above our goal for the year, which was $300,000. So we don't. At this point, being the end of June, and there's only 1 month left in our fiscal year, I don't anticipate any closings. There's none in the pipeline right now, so there are a couple on deck for the fall. So we'll have some revenue coming in pretty good at the beginning of the fiscal year, I think. There's a couple of key closings.
A potential one could, but it's probably gonna be in September around.
Yeah, exactly. So, anyway, that's just a note on revenue and no other comments on the income statement, I guess, except we have taken in now our share with the county. That number will be final in June, but if you jump down on the income statement about 3/4 of the way down, you see pilot share with county 222. That'll be a final figure of it in there. And in June, we get everything reconciled, et cetera, et cetera. So, that's pretty much it.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. Any other comments or questions on the financial statement? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, treasurer's report is carried. Okay, number 4, the governance committee bylaws review update. And the governance committee met on June 19th, and we reviewed and updated with the help of Kevin LaMontagne, Kevin Caracoli, and Austin, and the committee to just kind of go over it and just bring it up to where we needed to have it, because it needed some updating. So, did everybody get a chance to look at the revised bylaws with the changes and everything? Okay, what I'd like to do now is maybe turn it over to either Austin or Kevin, just kind of review what we did, and maybe Kevin reinforce some of the changes that had to be made in accordance with the state ADO and state policy.
I can start that too. So if you look through, I mean, it's pretty clear. Anything that's marked in red in here was additions, and anything crossed out, and obviously this was just some removals. There are some comments on the side from Kevin that is sort of some clarifications. You know, the majority of what we wanted to address was to specifically address a finance committee that was not listed in the previous version or the existing version of the bylaws. We also wanted to clarify a few areas, you know, in terms of a couple things in the governance committee, a couple things in the audit committee. Took out some redundant language that we had related to officers of the agency. There was some potential, there was looking at doing assistance for different officers that, you know, we just determined it was redundant. We can, you know, if needed, or, you know, we can assign, like today, we can assign a pro tem officer in the event of, you know, it's a small board, 7 people, so it's a little difficult to have assistance for all of those officers. Other than that, I mean, it's a little bit of language was added for open meeting laws. You know, that's more related to, you know, when these bylaws were originally done, you know, we weren't, there was no streaming of meetings that was taking place. You know, this was 2008, I think was the last time we had a major change to the bylaws. So just to kind of bring things up to, you know, 2023 in terms of the technology that's available and other things. So that's, I guess what I can say from my side. Kevin, do you want to say anything from the legal side?
Yeah, there many of the comments in the comment boxes that have been added were in response to some questions that came up during meetings, right? So the whole issue of independent members, we just clarified that and called that out, referencing the public authorities law, specifically section 2825. I was reluctant to add the entire text of it into our bylaws because that could change, right? So referencing the law itself, and if it does change, that takes care of those issues of independence. There was another question related to whether each of the committees required a quorum or a majority of the members to be independent, and I got some clarification that that's not the case. So in other words, our committees can be made up of a mix of independent and non-independent members. Theory being that the full board has to be comprised of a majority of independent members, but they're the full board ratifies all determinations and decisions of each of the committees. So that was.
Is there a definition of independent?
There is. Well, I mean, it's referenced within the law. It's, you know, So for the purposes of the public authorities law, independent members, an independent member is one who is not in the past 2 years, in- or has been employed by a public authority, by the public authority, in other words, the IDA, or an affiliate in an executive capacity. So in other words, Mike Treadwell, although you could argue he wasn't employed, he was appointed, but let's say for the sake of argument, he was a paid CEO, or Austin retires and he's a paid CEO, or Kevin for that matter, couldn't serve for at least 2 years as an independent member. Could be appointed to the board, but wouldn't be considered independent.
Could they be appointed to the board now as current employees?
No,
No, that's.
that's the next one. Is not, and in the past 2 years has not been employed by an entity that received remuneration valued at more than $15,000. Is not a relative of an executive officer or employee.
What kind of, doesn't that just mean that they're not independent, but could they serve as dependent members?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah,
Right, maybe if that was your question.
It just seems strange that would be allowable though, as the board oversees the staff, it would be, I think, difficult to serve in both. Not that we're looking for, but just interesting.
The other one that's built into the body of the law says that the majority, so except as for members who serve as members by virtue of holding a civic office of the state, so essentially an ex officio member, the majority of the remaining members of the governing body of every state and local authority shall be independent members. And that, I mean, it also includes, elected officials and officials that are appointed by the appointing body, right? So every, both, I would submit, before Tim was in his current job as an elected official, and Mark, you as a county employee or county official, because you are part of the appointing board, you'd be appointed to this board, but you're not considered an independent member under the public authorities law.
Tim is now, or
Well,
for 2 years it would be.
be argued because he's employed by the appointing authority for at least a period of 2 years, he's not considered independent. So,
Tim, I wanted to, your point about like could also be members of the agency. Section 2B says the board shall appoint a CEO and CFO, neither of whom shall be a member. So that helps that
Easier
whole
right
issue
there.
you were talking about, yeah. So it's other ones.
Conceptually, it
Yeah.
makes sense.
so that's, and I've attached, just for reference purposes, we've called it out in the bylaws, but I've also attached a copy of the text of the law from the public authorities law.
So when would that have an impact on us as far as votes are concerned? If we needed to have a certain number of independent people for a quorum, is that only in regards to things that directly relate to the county?
It's interesting because it says, right, it says that you must have a majority of your members independent, but it doesn't, the public authorities law and none of the information that I've read states that, if, you've got a 7-member board, let's just say for the sake of argument, you got 3 non-independent members, 1 independent member, and that's all that shows up for the meeting, right? You need 4 for a quorum.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't, I've not seen or found any authority saying that the board could not adopt a resolution. Because there were,
None of them.
non-independent members sitting around the table.
For the
So
membership.
it's the membership itself, the total membership. I suppose it could be an audit issue or subject to some potential,
For example, today.
Yeah.
We've got 3 independent members and 2 non-independent members.
correct,
So we don't have a quorum of independent members, technically.
right,
But
but
it's
you
just
do
a question of, we have a quorum of the board.
correct.
So it's,
I found no legal authority, no advisory opinions that say that this board right now, the way it's comprised, if you adopt resolutions today, it doesn't say that they're invalid, right?
Okay.
So,
Okay, that seems to make sense. I mean,
Yeah.
if you show up, you show up. can still pass, no
Right.
matter who shows up.
So the overall purpose of this is to not have the board
Seven.
above the.
So now they have 7 county legislators on the board.
basically.
So I
Yeah.
thought.
Or, you know, and again, this, keep in mind, this is the public authorities law of the state of New York, so it covers any authority. Public authority, local authority,
Throughway,
state,
everything,
throughway,
Port of Oswego
MTA,
Authority and.
Port of Oswego,
Under New York.
any authority, you know, some of them are, you know, unfortunately, this covers everyone, but we are far different than, you know, the MTA, right? But we all have to be bound by the same general rules.
Makes sense.
So it also stops us from having, say, Shane Broadwell as a member at this point because he's receiving benefits from the corporation.
Correct.
For 2
Yeah.
years.
For 2 years from when he received benefits, I mean, if you got a pilot, it's gonna be for an extended period of time, you can continue to receive benefits, so.
On
Something
a
like
2-year
that.
period from when you initially do it,
It
Agency
is,
approval? Not sure.
yeah, it is not, or in the past 2 years is not employed by an entity that received remuneration of more than $15,000 for goods and services, provided to the public authority or received by any of the.
So that's just if we bought something from him.
Yeah, so that's not an issue.
But it also says or received any other form of financial assistance valued at more than 15,000.
There's the issue.
But that person could serve, they would just be a non-independent.
Right, for a 2-year period.
Correct.
Or
it'd be a 2-year period.
Well, would
After
it last
2 years, it'd be
would it last though,
Makes sense.
That whole term.
if it was a pilot, would it last the whole term of the pilot till the pilot was gone, I guess that's
An
the
interesting
question.
question.
But I think Tim hit the nail on the head there. It creates a situation where they may not be considered independent, but it doesn't necessarily prohibit them from being appointed and serving on the board.
So it doesn't prohibit them from being on the board?
Would not.
Correct.
Okay, alright, that was under the assumption that it did.
For the record, he and I are the only non-independent members in the room as of present.
I believe so, yeah.
And
On the
Tim-
board,
and
on the
Tim-
whole board.
Yeah, the whole board.
and for Tim for 2 years,
Yeah, I would say at least the 2-year period.
then you become independent.
Well, he's still on probation, let's see if he makes it.
Let's see, I don't,
But the point is, we could potentially have a third non-dependent member and still be satisfying the rules of the board, rules of the state, and we would not be putting in jeopardy the ability for our subcommittees or our board to meet as long
In
as.
theory.
correct.
Yeah, one more.
There was one other question I think that came up in the course of some earlier discussions, and that was whether we really needed a finance committee, because we have an audit committee. And the answer is yes. Finance committees are required for authorities that issue debt, and we do issue debt.
Are they required to be separate? Could they be in
They
audit
are.
and finance?
They-
Okay.
Yeah, they have to be separate.
They can be the same people,
Sure.
but they have to be separate.
Two separate
Right.
meetings.
Right, yeah.
It's-
So you could have them back to back, but you have to actually end a meeting, start another meeting and
Makes sense.
do that. But
Um,
and there is considerable overlap of those two committees.
I think the only, one of the questions was, training too. And that's something that Austin was gonna check into.
Yeah,
What
that's-
required, cause this mentions in the bylaws
So-
about training.
There is required training in the first year of a new IDA member. There is nothing that I found in terms of ongoing training. There, obviously there is training available, but there's nothing requiring ongoing training. I think it's more of if you feel you need it, you have the ability to do it.
You serve as on the planning board, right? And there is an annual
Mhm.
4 hours, but there is
Required.
no
Yep.
compatible requirement for a public authority member.
Was it, how many years ago, remember we all had to take one training class?
Yeah.
Is that still required or not?
Yeah, right, for new members.
For new members,
For new
yeah.
members.
And if you haven't taken it, if you're an existing member and haven't taken it, you're obviously still need to do that until you've done it. But there are 2 in-person classes per year. They're both hosted by New York State EDC. One of them is in upstate. Last year it was in Utica. The other one was down near Stony Brook. So there's some opportunities for in-person training, and then there's also virtual training. Fortunately, it's not like a You can do it on your time, it's a scheduled event, because they have someone there who actually goes through the program and does questions and things, but if there's a need, we can help, connect anyone to that training.
Okay, anybody else have any questions or comments on the revised bylaws?
Okay, did we have a motion? I apologize, I missed it. Do we have one there?
Not yet.
I don't know.
Okay.
No, not yet.
I'll make the motion to discuss it.
Oh, we have a motion.
Motion to discuss or to
To
approve.
receive it or
Approve
neither, yeah.
as-
I'll make the motion to approve it as written.
Okay, do
Provided.
I have a second? Motion by Tim Stahl, seconded by Nick Canale. Okay, further discussion, please? Comments, questions?
So in the final form, I will be removing the comments, right? I mean, I suppose I could put them at the bottom for historical purposes if we need to, but,
Personally, I think a clean copy.
yeah,
Thank you.
okay.
Yeah.
I would recommend that as well, but
Yeah.
if anybody's inclined, I can.
Well,
I guess as long as you're mentioning, you mentioned are you gonna take out pursuant to New York State Public Authority law in red? I think I would leave that portion in.
Oh, yeah,
That
everything
is-
that's in the body, just the comments,
Okay.
the comment
Yeah,
boxes
because
will
that's
be
just
removed.
referencing that,
Right.
right? So as
Everything
long
in
as
the
it's
bylaws
there,
is crossed off.
somebody can always go and look it up. if it's an
And the
issue.
clean copy will be just all black, it will take out all the red strikeouts and all the rest of it.
Anybody else, any comments, questions? Okay, we got a motion and a second on the revised bylaws. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Revised bylaws and carried, and I'd like to thank Kevin Caracoli, Austin, Kevin Lamontagne, and Tricia, Mark, and Nick for the work they put into it. You guys did a great job. And just to kind of, you didn't print this?
I did, but I left it in my office, so when we go to executive session and come back, I'll grab those for
Okay,
everybody.
so I wanna just kind of go over the other committees that we set up. Okay, next on the agenda, number 5. 28 Lakeview Holdings LLC.
Yeah, so 5 and 6 are similar, but they're similar or separate approvals. As we get many times throughout the year, folks, companies under straight lease pilot agreements need to get the IDA's consent when they do any type of mortgage financing. So we have, on the agenda today, we have 2 cases of that. 28 Lakeview, number 5 first, 28 Lakeview Holdings is the iFreeze facility, the former Bird's Eye Freezer in Fulton, which they seem to be doing quite well. They're looking to get some additional financing into the group of companies that owns that plant by leveraging their assets. So, basically, everything seems pretty normal. There's a lot of value in that building, no doubt. It's a working, 120,000 square foot freezer with 40-foot ceiling, so it has a lot of value.
Are they expanding?
No, not there, no.
Okay.
Mhm. This is money to be used in a group of companies, and we're in public session, so I don't wanna cover much else,
Understood.
but yeah.
Understood.
so my understanding is that they have a lease on some of that equipment from us. Is that where we're at as far as that company is concerned, or am I thinking?
We have a HUD loan to iFreeze, the operating company, yeah.
So I'm thinking.
And they're
of
in good
people next door to them.
Yeah,
Are you thinking Canaan?
that's
Yeah.
a lease or just other straight financing to be.
K&M, we had something on their equipment.
No, we had a lease on their equipment because they couldn't do.
We're in a first lien position on the entire,
The entire
everything
building?
it contains together.
Okay.
But that's of course different.
Different company.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, the space was subdivided, they sold off the portion though, the frozen warehouse to iFreeze, we brought them in, I think around 2016 or 17. And what they're looking to do is they're looking to try to raise some capital to invest in their entire company, and they have a ton of equity in this facility, so they're looking to refinance this facility, pull cash out to make investments company-wide.
Okay. Makes sense.
Okay, on 20 Lakeville Holdings, iFreeze. Can I get a motion and a second on the consent to mortgage, please?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Nick Canale, seconded by Mark Greco. Any further discussion?
One more comment, maybe I mumbled it out, but they are in good standing with us. They've been excellent on the pilot payments, their HUD loan payments. They're also an SBA borrower, which has been no problem from the beginning, and they're good shape. So.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Lakeview is carried. And now East Lake Commons LLC.
Yeah, East Lake Commons again is a similar, but I just wanted to share some of the details we have so we can all remember how complex some of these housing project financing structures are. Basically, it seems with this, so 20 Lake, or sorry, East Lake Commons is funded in with basically a stack of financing, and the project had been awarded $800,000 in ESD financing, but basically there was a change of lenders, and a permanent lender was brought in. So basically they need us to assign one of the mortgages and then consent to the mortgage as well. So the other lenders that are involved kind of came in and filled the gap, and they brought in a new lender for part of the ESD funds, and one of the other lenders filled the gap. So it's basically taking out temporary financing on a project like that. Now that it's fully occupied, they can bring in permanent financing. So.
And by virtue of the fact that there's a pilot agreement and we're entitled as the agency, if for no other reason, we don't have any money that's loaned
We don't
out
have
to
any
this
money on loan,
project. No, we're not, it's
Yeah.
not a subordinate situation that we're being asked to be placed in. We're just asking consent to this refinancing and mortgage as a property owner.
Any project that's under a pilot agreement, because we're in the chain of title, they have to get consent from us to be able to refinance any mortgage on property.
Okay, makes sense. I'll make a motion to move.
Okay. A motion by Mark Greco, seconded by
I'll second.
Mary Trimble on the consent to mortgage for East Lake Commons. Any other questions or comments?
We have a question about that project, but I think it may be particular to the, maybe something needs to be done in executive session because it's specific to the owner and the operation of the business.
Okay.
I don't know if that's.
Yeah, I mean, that would fall under,
Okay.
The financial.
It shouldn't have any bearing on this specific question, so I think I'm comfortable on that. With that
Okay,
question.
make a note to bring that up though in executive session.
Okay.
Any other more comments or any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? East Lake Commons is carried. Okay, number 7, Oswego County Industrial Park expansion.
Yeah, I'll go into this one. There's a lot of acronyms in this. It probably breaks the record for the most in one bullet. So the L. Michael Treadwell Oswego County Industrial Park expansion, and this isn't specifically related to a Economic Development Administration grant that's available. It's a Public Works Economic Adjustment Assistance Grant, and it's called, and I want to be very clear, the program is called the Nuclear Closure Communities Grant. However, it's related to communities and counties that have energy sources that at some point in the future, could be 50 years from now, could be whatever, will close at some point, and you need to develop your economy. So we are looking to, we've had conversations, several now with EDA, that we're looking to apply for funding related to the infrastructure at the industrial park and build out roads and get in the site, doing site readiness activities, and we're going to be applying for this program. What we don't know yet, because we haven't gotten what they actually have available left for fiscal year 23, and there's not a lot of time on that, it may become a fiscal year 23 or a fiscal year 24 project. It's they accept applications rolling. There isn't really deadlines or that kind of thing. It's just they're trying to find out for us how much money they still have in fiscal year 23 and what isn't used gets rolled over to 24. So at this point, we know we're going to apply for it. We just don't know if it's going to be fiscal year 23 or 24. And if it is 23, that would be good for us because they are more apt to do a larger project versus throwing it into 24 and having to compete with all the other potential projects out there.
What's the determining factor on when you file it?
It's based on the end of their fiscal year, which I believe their fiscal year is, yeah, it's in September, but they need enough time to have it go through their process to be able to approve it before the end of their fiscal year. So I think it's September 30th, I think is their fiscal year. And, but to do that, they need to have ample time to have it go through their processes and be approved for funding before the end.
So even if it's
Approved,
next year,
not filed, it has been
Correct.
approved for funding.
Correct. Yeah. And so, they've walked us through that process and they said if they could get it, mid-July, but we need to know how much they have to, be able to develop the scope and everything else. So we've been doing everything we can other than, and the nice thing about this, this is an EDA program, so it mirrors very similarly the Build Back Better Regional Challenge. We already have a lot of the stuff that's needed, preliminary engineering report, the environmental report. We did all the ED900s, all the forms that they need. We just need to update it, change program names, and change signatures and things like that. But it's because we did that work before, and I said this before, because we did that before, it's prepared us for future applications and future opportunities. So this is something now what we are, and so the two bullets here, the two is the CNS engineering and environmental reports. We will need them to update those, but it's going to be pretty light updates. I mean, it could be as little as they just need to update the names and titles on the cover and in a couple places inside the thing, and then based also on how much money is there, they may have to update the scope a little bit. But we know what the project costs are related to what we've done before, and they've updated them for us since then too, earlier this year. So we know what costs are related to that project. It's not really a problem. The other thing is, because, and this is what we had to do before, we had to, so I'm just explaining these things before we kind of go in and talk about these items and do any potential votes on them, is we had to allocate funding, and so the IDA already has, and their pilot EDF has allocated $2.5 million to the expansion of the industrial park. That money is still there. They need to have specific language saying that the money is allocated and unencumbered, will not be used for other purposes when we submit the project. So we just need to make sure that if we do an authorization, we're making it, stating that it's unencumbered, it's allocated for the project and won't be used for other purposes. So I just want to put that out there, and that it's not anything that we haven't done before, and the funding is still there for it, obviously, but it's they need to see that language for this. So I guess we can go backwards now. So for CNS, they've told me, listen, based on what you guys are going to be applying for, and if it changes the scope at all, the costs for doing the upgrades to both of those could be up to $7,500, but it could be a lot less too. I mean, it could be something they just do because it's just going to go in and change the names and the stuff. What I'm asking for is looking to we already have funding set aside in pilot EDF for doing studies, engineering reports related to that site specifically. So I don't really need authorization. We're going to utilize that funds. We can talk about it in exec if we need to, but it's funding that's already been set aside by this board for this purpose, and we're not asking for additional funds there. So the only thing I'm looking for authorization for, and it's related to the formal, for the formal application, is that we are authorizing the $2.5 million that's already been set aside to be allocated for this project, unencumbered, and will not be allocated to any other projects.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it. Motion by Nick Canale, second by Gary Toth. Any further discussions or questions?
I just have one. How long will this, I mean, I know we've got to set aside for this, but suppose another really good deal comes up. How long will this $2.5 million be tied up on this project? If it's not, in other words, if we don't get the grant.
If you don't get the grant, it's not tied up.
I understand, but how long is it going to be tied up?
How long till we know?
Till we know, roughly.
I think we'll know
curious.
by September. I think
Okay.
that's, they need to make those decisions before they're going in, and I'll confirm that, but to my knowledge, we'll know pretty quickly.
And then we can reallocate.
Well, I don't think we need to reallocate, but yeah,
Right.
I wanted to know.
In the event we need it.
In the event, right.
Yeah.
So my question is, we've gone a couple different ways at this, trying to tackle this problem. Do you think this one's gonna work?
I think it has a better shot because there's, especially, we need to find out how much money is left there. We've heard that it could be upwards of $10 million, it could be, it could be less. We're still trying to wait for confirmation from Ed Hummel at EDA of what that actual amount is.
Does this need to be an intermunicipal thing in order to qualify for this, or?
All these discussions happened with Dave Turner, we looked at that. It's not required for the way that we're gonna write the application. I think it would be good to have a letter of support from the county. We did talk about that, but if the county were to do it, it would also require them to do a resolution, and the time that would take to do it, if they want this thing like early July, like July 10th, I don't think the next meeting by the ledge is until July 13th, so. we talked about it and said, listen, it's a project that it's on IDA owned property, we're not talking about the county having to step in and do anything in particular at this time, so it could be an IDA related, strictly application.
So we don't need anything from Scruple or?
What we may need from Scruple is just some sort of an additional form signed by them, but we don't need an authorization, like any sort of resolution or anything.
And what's
Good question.
the local match component of this? Is it a percentage?
They don't have one. I mean, what we've seen before, looking through the previous projects, it was anywhere from 25% to 50% of cost. But we're in a little bit of a unique position because if they have some pot of money left and they're trying to spend it before they hit the next year, we might see a better, percentage.
So the authorization for the local match is for up to the 2.5 that we've allocated.
Yeah.
And that's not currently being utilizing any other grant applications at this point, right? There's nothing else over there that you could plan to look at applying for the next couple months that you might need that money for?
No.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, we got a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried.
Is that for both, or is that setting up just for the one, and then we'll do the second piece? Is this for both the report and for the local match authorization, or is it for?
I don't know. I mean, we can do it.
That's what I was gonna ask about the
We
CNS
could do it
report.
when we come out in the EDF report if you want to do something formalized related to that. But we've already set aside $66,000 left for
So
this.
this is authorization for local match, it's
Yeah.
12.2.
Correct.
First of all, it's more of an FYI, I think, or an update.
Okay. All right, number 8.
We gotta vote on that? We just
It was all
did
big.
vote?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Losing my mind.
Welcome to the club. Okay, now I think we need to go into executive session. Kevin, can you detail why we need to go into executive session at this time, please?
Sure, it's to discuss the financial history of a particular person or corporation. Public officers law.
Okay, thank you.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Tim
Second.
Stahl, seconded by Mark Greco to go into executive session at what time, Tim?
9:39.
9:39. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. to.
Alright, we're ready.
2 hour.
Can I get a motion to come out of executive session?
I'll move it.
Second.
Barry Trimble, seconded by Mark Greco. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
129.
So, we need to look at, nothing regarding item number 8, correct? Or number 9. Number 10 is just for our informational purposes, we don't need to vote on that,
No
correct?
changes.
Delinquent loan report, can I get a motion for, accepting it? Motion by Mark Greco, second by Barry Trimble. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Can I get a motion on, Kevin, you wanna explain what we're gonna do here with,
Speak. Consent to accept a conflict waiver to be submitted by Barclay Damon in reference to the Novell straight lease transaction.
I'll make that motion.
Your consent.
I'll second it.
Any discussion, questions, comments? Motion by Mark Greco, second by Tim Stahl, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Was there anything else that we needed to discuss? I don't think so.
Next meeting.
As far as coming out of executive, there's nothing else.
Well, it was,
Okay, so then, any other business, anything else as far as that goes?
Do I have any other business?
Next meeting,
How does, Thursday the 27th look? Or Wednesday the 26th?
Wednesday the 26th doesn't look good for me.
The 27th doesn't look good for me, but
What about Tuesday the 25th?
I should be good.
that's okay.
Got a meeting about rehearsal there, but I don't necessarily have to be there. It's not confirmed either.
Is that date okay for everybody else? I mean, we're missing a couple people, so we're taking a flyer on that.
Get it out there and see what they say.
Yeah, they tentatively say that for now.
So, yeah, that sounds good. That's 26th, you said?
Tuesday the
Tuesday the 25th.
25th at 9 a.m.
Monday,
I'm gonna get 8 AM too.
Can do it.
Major.
This can't be recorded. 8 a.m. All right.
Make it a little tougher.
Okay. Well, we'll just have to. We'll
Well, if you can't.
we gotta ask the other three who aren't here just to make sure that works.
Split the difference if you tell us 8:30 or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. 8:30 works better for me if you want. Just say
Just
8:30.
8:30 to start with that.
Okay. And then we'll check with everybody else, but tentatively we'll look at Tuesday, July 25th at 8:30 a.m. is the next IDA meeting.
Sounds good.
Take a motion to.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
That was in favor.
hold on.